There's a Demon in Lake Park. From Brett 4798. When I was 16 years old, I started seeing more and more paranormal things. It was as if I was targeted to be tormented by demons and spirits. My grandpa once told me that it was a curse that ran in the family. I was never sure that I believed all that, until one night. It was a Friday night in January. We lived in a small town and there wasn't much to do. So as usual, I sat in my room on my phone, waiting for someone to ask me to hang out with them, waiting for myself to come up with a better idea if that didn't happen. After a while, I got a text from my friend Jerry. The text read, "Hey man, let's get spooky tonight." I knew exactly what he meant. He wanted to get in his old truck and drive around on creepy roads. I was bored out of my mind, so naturally I said yes to him. I got dressed real quick, then got in my car. It wasn't long after that I met Jerry and some other friends at my friend Cam's house. We sat around for a while, talking about Lake Park that's a few miles outside of town, remembering the urban legends about it, while we waited for my girlfriend at the time to show up. The most well-known legend about Lake Park was something about a guy taking, tormenting, and ending the lives of random girls. They say he preyed upon them at Lake Park a long time ago. Now let me get to the good part. The truck was full and my friend Jerry was driving with Tommy in the passenger seat. In the back seat was me, my girlfriend Maddie, and another girl named Mary. We drove down the path that goes to the back of the park. We drove under this light pole that supposedly was out of order and didn't receive power anymore. But the moment we passed under it, the light clicked on. Seconds later, the light went off, as if something or someone had turned the light on just for us. It was really strange. I wrote it off as maybe some malfunctioning motion detector, and maybe they didn't get around to uninstalling the power to that unit. I don't know. We slowed down and rolled down the windows after that, beginning to listen to the sounds around us. Sure enough, it wasn't long until we started to hear some strange noises coming from the forest around us. I was expecting something creepy to happen, sure. But what I did not expect was the amalgamation of screams in the distance. Feminine screams. Our little group got freaked out and tried to blame this on distant animals that just sounded like screaming. But I didn't believe that. Not in the slightest. Our friend Mary then suddenly screamed, saying that she saw something in a tree. But no one else saw it, and perhaps besides me, no one else believed her. As we continued our drive, I turned around and focused my attention on the trees. To my horror, I saw exactly what she had described. A dark outline of a decaying body hanging from its neck from a large tree limb. I shouted out what I saw to the group, and Jerry stopped the truck. As we peered out the windows, we all were filled with this same awful feeling of absolute terror and dread. We continued to look and listen, but we didn't dare get out of the truck. It was too quiet, almost silent. But then, I heard what sounded like a faint whisper, a child's voice saying, "Help, help." When I turned to the direction of the noise, I saw where it came from. there was a pale-skinned little girl dressed in tattered gray clothes. She was about 20 feet away from the truck. I stared on in shock for maybe 10 seconds, but then she vanished. After a couple of breathless moments, I regained my composure and told the group about what I saw. Mary started to record the forest around us on her phone, which oddly enough immediately crapped out. Soon enough, my attention was stolen by something behind a tree 15 yards away from us. I could only describe it as a phantom-like shadow. It had the body of a man and stood about 8 feet tall. Its eyes were deep, dark red, and you could see goat-like horns on top of its head. Everyone saw it. For some strange reason, though, that still wasn't enough to scare us away. Maybe we were gluttons for fear. So we kept watching it, as it would disappear for several minutes, then we would spot it again for only a few seconds. We eventually noticed that it was getting closer to our truck. Then I saw it right behind the truck through the mirror, and I literally screamed to Jerry, "Man, get us the hell out of here!" As he started the truck, I could hear from behind us a deep and sinister voice. "Stay." He floored it then, gravel flying out behind us as we went up the path, leaving the park behind us as quickly as we could. We must have been going 75 down that old crappy country road. I'm surprised we didn't wreck. It was then that my friend Mary announced to us that she wasn't able to record any of that. I sighed. What we experienced could have been world-changing. After we all made it back to Cam's house, we got in our separate vehicles and left. Only then, on my way back home, did I feel relieved and safe again. I had to take my girlfriend home first. She lived in a town about 30 minutes away. When we departed from Cam's house, it was 11:30. When we got into my little Toyota truck, she sat in the seat and passed out immediately. It had been a long night after all. I did try to shake her out of it, to wake her up and give me company throughout the long ride, but nothing I did could make her move at all. I went ahead and started the car, driving our way to her house. If she was still unflinchingly asleep by then, I would just carry her inside. As soon as we got out of town, I was able to wake her up at last. But when she woke up, she acted like she had no idea what was going on. She even had an expression of sheer terror on her face. Then her eyes did something weird. They sort of rolled back in her head. Then she immediately passed out again. I was beyond concerned at witnessing this. I stopped the car and tried repeatedly to get her up. Then she suddenly started twitching and convulsing, which got worse and worse. I thought she was having a seizure. I screamed and shook her and did everything I could, but she wouldn't budge. Then she stopped moving and went silent. After a minute or so, she began mumbling something that I could not understand, something that sounded almost as if it were a different language. She said it in a deep and sinister, gravelly voice. Then as I made the connection in my head, my heart began to sink. It sounded like the same voice that told me to stay earlier. I continued to drive, now speeding the remaining 30 miles as I was scared to death. When we got into her town, she finally snapped out of it. She had no memory of this either. She didn't have any memory of anything since we had left the park. She started rubbing her leg and saying that it stung like crazy. Soon enough, I pulled into her driveway and turned on the dome lights to get a better look. When she rolled up her pant leg, I saw 3 scratches. It looked like she was scratched by a person with disgustingly long fingernails. When I looked closely at the scratches, they were scratched into what looked like a VI, the Roman numeral for 6. Now, I'm no biblical scholar, but I do know that 6 is the devil's number, and that scared me even more. Later that night, I went to my usual church to talk to the pastor, since his house was right next to the church. He didn't seem very happy that I woke him up at 12:30, but I didn't care, because I was scared and I needed some answers. He told me that the things we witnessed in that park were an omen of great evil. That's what I already thought, but this served as confirmation. I called my friend Jerry, and the two of us went back to the park. We took one look around, just to be sure that we weren't all going crazy. Yet plain in the day, in the middle of the park, out in the open, I saw it again. Those red eyes piercing me, followed by another monstrous growl. We left right away. Lately, it's been pretty quiet at that park. I've driven by it several times, yet nothing more has happened. That experience back then, it scared me pretty bad, and to this very day, I'll never go back to that park alone.